Hello everyone, welcome back. So it's time for another update. There's been quite a bit happening on both the cars since our last update, so we'll put this together now, and it also includes some information that we found on the engine that's in the Ellerys AU that dates back prior to it being installed in the car. And there's a connection to Mark Larkhams, which is quite interesting. And we've also got an update on FTR3. As you can see, we've got the AU front end sitting on it at the moment, just mock fitting some corner panels and bits and pieces. The rad support panels in it. So there's been a bit happening with that car as well. So we'll put this all together now and we'll bring you up to speed, and I hope you enjoy. So while we've been chasing down parts and bits and pieces for this car, we've come across a really cool little bit of history on the engine. Now, we've covered off earlier that it's an Alan Jones racing engine originally. It's the original engine in the car today that was in the car when it was first logbooked back in the year 2000, which is a rarity for a V8 supercar. But there's one little bit of history and a link that we didn't see coming. So in 1999, before this car was built, the Ellerys family had an EL Falcon that they ran. Now, it was before Supercheap Auto and obviously before this car was built. And the EL Falcon ran in the Shellgrave livery. Now, that car's history is a Stone Brothers chassis, which prior to that was an Alan Jones racing chassis, which Steve ran all the way up until the non-championship round on the Gold Coast in 1999, because he did race with Paul Radisich in the Enduros. Now, the EL was badly damaged in an accident at the end of 99, and the car was stripped, and a lot of the running gear from that car was transferred over to the brand new AU shell, which is what you see today, which became the Supercheap Auto Falcon.
It's final run on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, it's
massive crash.
Big crash. Ellery, Lowndes,
and Tander. Now, that looked like that was going to happen because those guys were pushing real hard.
Totally.
They would tend to think he's been caught up in this, which...
Look at the front of Tander's car.
There's Radisich coming through. Ellery comes through here. Now, Lowndes is already ahead. Oh, Ellery's gone in.
He's hit the wall.
He's made a massive... Lowndes has gone straight into Tander into him. Well, Ellery's made a big mistake.
That's the chain reaction we see so many times on the streets of...
So once all the running gear from the damaged shell was transferred over to car 31, the damaged shell was then sold back to Stone Brothers, who repaired it, painted the inside of it white, and then it became David Bernard's Konica Series car for 2000 in preparation for his debut in the main game in 2001. Now, where the history gets interesting is if you go back to 1998, or the end of the 1998 season when the Ellerys purchased the EL Falcon. That was actually Mark Larkhams' 1998 Mitre 10 Falcon that they purchased. It was run as a customer car from Stone Brothers Racing, and all the running gear that ended up in the Supercheap Auto number 31 Falcon came straight out of Larko's 1998 EL Falcon. And it was a car that he had a lot of success with. He won on the streets of the Gold Coast in 98, which was his first win. So a lot of the pedigree and the running gear of this car, even before the AU Falcon was built, has had a lot of success, and it's another chapter in the car's history.
Nice sunny day. It was a little overcast yesterday. We'll see how Larkhams shapes up.
I'll tell you what, this car's been hauling the mail up the hill. He's the fastest man so far to the top of the hill, and now split time. If he can carry that speed all the way down the hill, this is going to look very good for Mark Larkhams. Braking hard for Caltech's Chase. Wants to get this corner nice and tidy as he shoots out under the Dunlop Bridge and down toward Pit Straight. Nice, tidy, fast lap. The Ford fans will be screaming if he can bring this one home.
Well, that's where Bargwanna lost it. This could be where Larkhams wins it because he was beautiful. He was smooth through there. 2:12.25 is still the time that stands. Larkhams is going to nail it. A 2:11. No, a 2:10.9. Good.
It's not a far stretch to refer to the commentary where they say that Larko's EL was hauling the mail and was one of the quickest cars in a straight line at Bathurst. When you look at the near identical commentary in the year 2000 down Conrod Straight, they were saying exactly the same thing, that the car 31 Ellerys Falcon was one of the quickest cars in a straight line. You'd have to say it's due to what we're looking at right now. So this being said, we're still pursuing this fuel leak. We've had a bit of a breakthrough. Let's have a look. So as we alluded earlier in the week on our Facebook page, we managed to get hold of a bore scope. And what we did is we put the scope right up underneath all the throttle bodies and trumpets, ran the engine, and just to have a bit of a look where this fuel leak's coming from. Unfortunately, without that, it's very difficult to get an idea because it runs down onto the valley tray, out the back of the engine, and you've really got no idea where the fuel leak is originating from. We have obviously discounted, fittings and lines and bits and pieces like that. That was easy once they were pressure tested. It's just been a matter of trying to find out where it's actually coming from. What we did last week, it did slow the leak, but it didn't completely fix it. Now, just to show you the battle that we're facing. So this trumpet at the front's just now sitting here. We've got the aluminium base on it. You've got a gasket, and what it does is it hooks into that C channel there. So if I twist that, that hooks in like that. Seats like that, you put your screws in and it compresses down. Now that gasket's obviously a bit thin because it's got no load on it, but that's the theory behind it. Now, the reason why I'm persisting with gaskets and bits and pieces is originally this system was araldite in, urethaned in, I should say. So they didn't have the gasket, they just poured a heap of urethane on it, put some screws in it and sent it. Obviously, if you want to take the trumpets off and do a quick repair or an inspection, it's a nightmare. You've got to clean it all off and start the process again. So I'd like to have it that I can just put a gasket in it, take the trumpets on and off easily without making a mess, and going from there. So that's the reason why we're, I guess, spending a fair bit of time on this issue. So what we've done with the bore scope is that's actually leaking right out the base or this corner on two of the trumpets. So if I take that off, it's sealed up 6 of the 8. So it's just leaking out of the corner on trumpet, that one and that one. So what we're going to do is put a thicker gasket in there. Also put just a light film of sealant on it as well. And obviously a new O-ring, and we'll see if that tidies it up. Hopefully that'll then solve our fuel leak issue, and then we'll refit the base of the airbox, get everything all put on permanently once we know the fuel leak's solved. So now an update on FTR3, and as you can see, there's been a little bit more progress over this side of the workshop as well. So we've managed to get the AU front welded on and secured in place on FTR3. Now, one thing we still have to do is make the front rad support removable. So on a normal road car, that radiator support panel is welded on. Obviously, you don't need to remove it. On these cars, 2 reasons. It's sacrificial, so if you get a hit in the front, it's one of the first things that'll go. And also for removing engines and bits and pieces, it's a lot easier when it's out of the way. So what we need to do is weld all this in where the spot welds were, and then we need to TIG weld a nut into the frame. So stiffen all this material up, put a couple of nuts in there, and then drill some holes so you can actually put a bolt straight through the rad support panel, and it'll lift off as a one-piece unit. And there's just rivets in the headlight buckets, so that whole section comes away quite easily. But as you can see, a majority of the work's all done. We've grafted all that bottom section in, back in here. That was all shortened up to suit the BA headlights. And yeah, really a lot of that hard work's now done. One thing we are working through at the moment is just working out what holes are dormant and what will need to stay. So as an example, you've got that hole there, or that thread there, which has been welded in. That's to suit the BA quarter panel. The AU quarter panel hole is still there, so we'll get rid of that. That'll go back to that, utilise that original thread. Same deal with the hinges. They were put in to suit the BA hinge point. That's an AU spot, so we need to rethread or get that welded in again. So there's going to be a lot of these little 1%ers that we need to get right the first time, because once it's painted, we don't want to go back and revisit all this. Now, one thing we have discovered, you can see here, if I hold the camera back a little bit, this bar here is original, and that bar there is original. And as you can see, it was removed on the other side so a rear passenger can get in and out of the car. Now, this bar grafts up and splices into the bottom of this bar here. Now, if we go around the other side of the car, you can see the lower bar on the passenger side remains, and it's got white paint on it, so it's definitely an original bar. But what we've discovered is if you follow it up, where it would normally splice into the bottom of that bar at the rear shock point, because this crossbar from here is gone, that bar no longer is long enough to join into the shock point. So what they've done, and you probably can't really see it on camera, but it's been welded and sleeved in this section here. So we need to actually cut this whole bar out and replace it, because it has been cut and shut at that rear section. So there's going to be a lot of little 1%ers like that we need to find now, but we are getting through it slowly. and hopefully it's not too much longer and it'll be shipped off and ready to go to fabrication. So one of the little challenges, it's a real messy part of the job now, but we're really looking forward to having a nice, restored, clean white chassis to start putting FTR3 back together and returning it to its glory days. So work's continuing tonight on the Supercheap AU. As you can see, we've got all the trumpets removed, and we're removing each individual throttle body and replacing the bolts that hold the C channel on. What we've discovered, it's not much, but it could be a bit of an issue. These are just a tiny little bit out of square, and some of the bolts in the bottom are getting a little bit sad. And as you can see, they're only a small cap screw. So we're just removing each individual throttle body, replacing the bolts, putting some Loctite on them, and re-gapping every C channel so it is perfectly square where the bottom of the trumpet sits into. We'll cut some new gaskets, we'll put it all back together, and hopefully we'll have a running car that fires up with no fuel leaks, and it'll be a big step toward getting this car back on track. Where I'll leave you tonight, we've got some footage of Larko's shootout lap from Bathurst 1998 with the running gear in that car that ended up in the Supercheap Falcon. And as you'll hear, the sound of the thing going down Conrod Straight is magnificent. So I hope you enjoy, and hopefully next update we'll have some good news for you.
And on a roll, we can say too, Mark Larkhams, the 34-year-old, born and raised in Sydney, now lives up on the Gold Coast, very close to Stone Brothers Racing, who prepared this Mitre 10 Falcon. And boy, hasn't this man turned his fortunes around in 1998, looking very competitive throughout the Shell Series, absolutely cleaned up on the streets of Surface Paradise a few weeks back. This man is looking very good.
He is riding a very big confidence wave at the moment. He's extremely pumped up, extremely enthusiastic. And he is really looking forward to this weekend after his double win at Honda Indy, his first ever V8 Supercar win. And not only did he do it once, he repeated it the next day on race day on Sunday. And he said now that he and his new teammate Brad Jones can come here as genuine contenders.
Well, having this team, the way that Ross and Jim Stone massage these cars into competitive form, very, very strong on shock absorber development. They've had Bridgestone tyres, which have been the dominant tyre. Oh, look how close he goes to the concrete there. Trying to find maximum amount of road to straighten up this course as much as possible. Then drop down in here for a narrow entry toward McPhillamy Park. Mark Larkhams looking very tidy so far on the Mitre 10 Ford. Campbell Little preparing the Ford V8 engines for the Stone Brothers Racing team. And they're looking quite formidable in 1998.
There are only 4 cars, and of course they were the top 4 cars yesterday to get into the 211 bracket. Plenty of air there underneath the Mitre 10 Falcon. Larkhams yesterday with a time of 2:11.92. You might say that sounds a little slow. Keep in mind, Scape did a 2:10 something last year, 2:10.03 I think it was. Yes, times were a little slower than usual yesterday, but today it should be a bit quicker. Nice sunny day. It was a little overcast yesterday. We'll see how Larkhams shapes up.
I'll tell you what, this car's been hauling the mail up the hill. He's the fastest man so far to the top of the hill, and now split time. If he can carry that speed all the way down the hill, this is going to look very good for Mark Larkhams. Braking hard for Caltex Chase. Wants to get this corner nice and tidy as he shoots out under the Dunlop Bridge and down toward Pit Straight. Nice, tidy, fast lap. The Ford fans will be screaming if he can bring this one home.
Well, that's where Bargwanna lost it. This could be where Larkhams wins it, because he was beautiful. He was smooth through there. 2:12.25 is still the time that stands. Larkhams is going to nail it. A 2:11. No, a 2:10.9.
Good.
2:10.9 for Larkhams.
That was a good one, Marco. Quickest, 2:10.9, a full second quicker than yesterday.
Yeah, so far so good, mate. It wasn't a bad lap, I've got to say. Oh, look, I'm just happy to be here, mate. I really am.
It looked great, looked so smooth.
Yeah, we've got a good package. It's been good all week, and let's hope it continues tomorrow, mate. But I'm pretty happy about that.
Fingers crossed.